Welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and today I have with us Carl SanFilippo, who is the broker owner of REMAX First Realty, which has 5 locations in the local New Jersey market. He's also the owner of CMS Property Management, and he is a very successful real estate investor. And we're going to talk to him today about all of these things. So welcome to the show.
Nicole, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thanks for coming. So Carl and I were talking a little bit before we got started about how Instagram's what kind of brought us back together again. And I love what you've been doing on Instagram. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're promoting on your channel and some of the things we can check out when we come follow you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing we're really talking about on our channel is really just about real estate in general. Mm-hmm. I love real estate. I've been an agent, a broker owner, all these different things. But the one thing that's true with real estate is I didn't love being a realtor, but I love real estate. Like I'm passionate about it. There's so many different ways to create a lifestyle that I never thought I was going to have. And what we've done with our social media is now we're being very intentional to get the message out, the value, to tell our story, to share it with the community, and hopefully just inspire other people. Because I always say investing in real estate has changed my life. Right. I grew up in a house. My dad, he drove to Brooklyn every day from Hillsborough, New Jersey, and he worked for the city and was all about a pension. I always joked around with my dad. I said, you know what I love about real estate investing is buying these rental properties is I'm creating a pension by 40 that you had to work until 65 to create. And my dad and I are very close. He's my best friend, so I could kind of bust his chops about it.
He's not insulted.
He's not insulted, no. And it's changed my life for the better. It's given me a lifestyle I never thought I was going to have. Hopefully it's going to give my kids a lifestyle that I never thought I could provide to my kids. So I'm really passionate about real estate investing. That's why I like to educate a lot of people. A lot of people pick my brains about it. I'm always just an open book about it. We teach our agents how to also invest in real estate, which I think makes us different than a lot of other brokerages. Because like I said, I've seen how it's changed my life, and I would love for it to help change others.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, look, when you think about that story and you think about our listeners, that's like kind of the American dream, right? Your dad brought you up and you decided to kind of take another path, one where you achieve your kind of own entrepreneurial sense of success. And I love the fact that you're translating that. So, Carl is being a little bit modest here. The 5 REMAX First that he owns has 300 agents in total. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us about when did you get started with REMAX First and how did you grow to 300 agents?
That's a great question. And I tell this story a lot. So we're going into our 11th year. I bought out our original office in East Brunswick and we had 8 agents. I didn't know what I was doing. I just got engaged at the time. I left my old brokerage. I ended up getting into some litigation with my old brokerage over some non-compete issues. And
always fun.
Yeah, as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face. Right. And I was doing a lot of REO, distressed properties back then, and I had built a pretty big team. So my goal was, hey, I'll buy this brokerage. I'll continue to build my big team. I'll do 100 deals a year selling real estate. And then if anyone wants to join the brokerage and if we organically grow, great. But I didn't set out with that mindset.
Intention. So you were a top producer when you were basically a producer with your own team at the time when you made your transition.
Correct.
And that was 11 years ago.
But so what happened was I got into litigation. I had to stop doing some of the REOs and properties I had. And at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. I remember telling my wife now, I was like, hey, I'm 30 years old. If I have to file bankruptcy, 10 years will be fine. That's the doomsday. And I decided, I was going to change the narrative. And I said, this is probably the best thing that could ever happen to me. So what I did was I hired a couple coaches, mentors, and I learned how to really recruit. Because if I couldn't sell the real estate at the level I was used to, how do I grow an office, generate revenue? And it just changed the whole trajectory of the business, my life. So I always tell people is right now, this might seem like the hardest moment of your life, but this could also be one of the biggest blessings in your life. It's all how you want to look at perspective. It's all how you want to change things. And funny, I was doing a sales meeting this morning before this, and I was telling people, what's the biggest fear you have about prospecting? And someone said rejection. And I said, well, let's change your perspective on rejection. And they said, what do you mean by that? I said, think about somebody that you might have asked on a date years ago and they said no. You got rejected. You not marrying that person or being with that person might have been the best thing for you and that person. Right. So sometimes rejection is the best thing that can happen to you. Yeah. It's all about your perspective. Because I tell agents some of the best listings you get are sometimes the ones you don't. Because if you don't fit well with that seller and it's a bad relationship, sometimes you're better off not even being in that relationship. So rejection could also be an incredibly good thing. It's all about how you look at it.
You got to embrace it, right? You have to embrace it. In sales and recruiting, it's a contact sport. It's a relationship business too. And it's incredible like what might happen when your back is up against the wall, when you really do face that moment of that impasse, right? Where you have to make a decision and make a change, like when you made your change to REMAX First, right? I'm sure that was obviously, like you said, difficult. You're almost facing bankruptcy. Here you are 11 years later with 300 people on your team.
Well, Nicole, it all comes down to your fight or flight moment, right? When you're fought with adversity, you could either fight or you can run. And a lot of people have a tendency to run. And really the worst thing you could do is freeze, because when you freeze, nothing good comes out of that. But it's the fight or flight moment. And I think a lot of agents have had a fight or flight moment over the last 2 years with the market turn. And we've seen a lot of agents go flight mode.
Well, I would think that your coaching and your mentorship definitely helps, right? They've seen the success that you've had, but what's the key to your recruiting process? Why do you think people decide to come work for you and your company?
It's simple. I think we add value. You know, I sit with an agent and I say, hey, we're not perfect, but we're always going to execute with the right intentions. And we're not always going to be right. But what we're going to do is everything we're doing in our business to enroll new people is we're going to show you how to do that in your business. Right. Because everybody here is in the enrollment business. You're enrolling new clients, we're enrolling new agents, and the principles are all the same. You know, even for you in the mortgage industry, if you're enrolling new people, LOs, whatever it might be, or new clients to do their mortgage, we're all in the same business.
Right.
You know, all the principles are the same. So if you work with us, we're going to show you what we're doing, and you're going to be able to replicate that.
Right.
And I think us being very authentic and just very real and providing that value, I would say is you could grow your business to whatever level you desire at our company, right? The rest is up to you. We'll give you the tools, the guidance, but you still have to execute. So I think what I'm mostly proud about is not that how many agents we have. That stuff doesn't matter. What I'm proud of is we have a very high retention rate.
Yeah.
And we have some agents who are doing a ton of business who can go anywhere they wanted to go and write their own ticket, but they choose to stay with us because day after day, we're providing the value that we promised. And are we perfect? No.
Right.
But nobody is. We'll make mistakes.
That's true.
We take ownership, and we really just want to see the other people succeed.
And that's a great point because, you know, retaining your team is one of, you know, recruiting is one thing, right? Bringing people through the door, but keeping them is the other biggest part of leadership and management and adding value to their day-to-day business. And so from what I heard you said, you kind of teach them how to do what you've done. Are you teaching them how to build teams? Are you teaching them how to become leaders? Give us a little bit more about what that looks like.
So what we're really teaching agents is there's a part where you have to generate leads. We're all in the lead generation business. You could be the best realtor. You can know the contract in and out. You could give great customer service. If you have if you have no clients, it doesn't mean anything because you can't do that. So what we like to show you how to consistently generate leads. And then what happens is when you generate enough leads, then you get really crazy, you get really busy. You know? I always tell agents, you never want to say you're available 24/7 because the minute I can't get a hold of you, I thought you were available 24/7.
Yeah.
So what we do is we teach them how to generate leads, how to get a consistent business going. And then the next stage is you're going to need some leverage.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is you can't do everything by yourself. You need to start outsourcing things. So we have a concierge program that helps agents with the administrative part.
Okay.
So then we start looking at building a team. So the foundation of building all businesses are the same. Right. Is how do we show you the foundation to build your business to get to the next level?
I love that. So you say leads and leverage, right? So, and I always say this too, like you have to be a marketing company before you're anything else, right? You have to generate the leads. We were having a conversation before about how how long ago network marketing started in the late 1800s. And then you have email marketing, right? And then you have digital marketing and social media marketing. And so it's all evolving. I'd be curious to hear about how you're coaching your agents on the evolution of lead generation changes in this business and what are they doing differently now? And how is your company helping them kind of excel in that spot?
Such a good point, because when I first got into real estate, it was like 2006. And I remember that I get into the office, I sit with the manager, I'm excited, right? Let's do this. And they say, write down everybody you know on a spreadsheet and mail them a card saying that you've just got into real estate.
Mailers.
And I remember that so vividly because as my manager's walking out and I'm saying I'm going to do it, is I take the cards and I throw it in the garbage.
You just did.
I was 25 years old. None of my friends were buying a house. We could barely come up with the money for our shore house in Belmar. And I'm going to start mailing them cards.
Right.
Agents have such an advantage now because you don't need to do that because the phone is your digital business card.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're connected to everybody. Even when we talk about working your past clients in Sphere,
Mm-hmm.
is you're typically connected with all these people on your social media.
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to really flywheel your business and stay in touch with your past clients using social media that we didn't have when I got into the business in 2006.
Absolutely.
But I tell agents the key is take online offline. So what do I mean by that is a big moment happens. You sold someone a house, they have their first child, whatever it might be, write a handwritten card, make the phone call, leverage your online relationships. But if you really want to go deep, anyone can hit the like button. Anyone could write a comment. What about sending something a little special in the mail, something to be noticed to make you stand out? So we really preach that. I preach a lot about building inbound marketing systems.
Okay.
So most agents, when they get into the business, they try calling for sale by owners expireds, which is great. But in this market is really hard. Our inventory is so tight. There's not a lot of expireds. For sale by owners right now feel like they don't need an agent as much. And what happens is if all your lead generation is running by your physical activities, congratulations, you have a job.
You do. Yeah.
And that's not a job I want.
Absolutely.
So I help agents get dialed in on how do we create an inbound marketing system where you have leads coming in while you're at your kid's baseball game, while you're sitting on the beach, while you're playing golf, while you're doing nothing, watching Netflix. How are you generating leads and how are you building that system? Because most agents struggle with, they get really busy, then they get really slow. They get really busy, they get really slow.
Right.
But when you generate inbound leads consistently, you have an even flow of business and you enjoy the business more. And I tell this sometimes to agents, like, well, what do you know? You haven't been in production in years. I said, well, my property management company 2.5 years ago had 0 doors under management. We're now close to 300 doors under management using every single strategy I am teaching you.
Right. Because it applies to all businesses,
100%.
right? It's the same system. It's replicatable. It's transferable. And, in this market, we were just talking about how it's like nothing's really as binary as it used to be. We're so many different things. Right now we have podcasts and we're trying to develop our social media presence and generate leads the way that people are continuing to evolve and find information, right? So, when you talk about the property managed business, because that's a great point, right? What you know how to do well is it doesn't matter. You could coach people on opening a pizza store, right? Because you know how to make business successful. That's the point, right? So now that you've made this business successful, you've grown these agents, you're sharing your system with them and the value that you provide. And now you move on and you've done that well. And now you have this property management business. So tell us about how you got 300 doors under management.
Well, it was all through this inbound marketing system that we've done. And what really flywheeled my business, I always say, is the biggest changes in your business is usually not the newest technology, usually not the newest marketing strategy.
Right.
It's usually people. So we have a really good team that runs that business. I only spend a few hours a week in the business. I just kind of help oversee it. We have an extremely talented person who's the CEO of the company. She runs it. She makes the decisions. But a big difference we made in this business is when we started it is we did what most people do is you just go for revenue grabs. So what I mean by that is we were managing anything. You'd come in, didn't matter what area it was in, didn't matter. We would just want to manage it because we were just trying to generate revenue. And I met with one of my mentors. His name's Ken Clothier. We were out in Dallas and he's got a big property management business and he's got a lot of other businesses. And so he asked me about a property management company. And I think at the time, maybe we had 200 doors under man. And I told him so proud, like, oh, we have 200 doors. And he started dissecting my business. And he's like, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard. And I was just like,
what?
I needed to hear that. He's like, you don't specialize in anything. He's like, you just are grabbing revenue. He's like, it's not scalable. It's not, you're going to hit these walls. And he was 110% right.
Wow.
So I met with him in Dallas. We flew back, my partner and I met with the CEO of my property management company. I said, all right, we are only managing now single family houses and small multifamilies. If it doesn't fit our box, we're not going to manage it.
What was the difference between single family and And small, what did you say?
Small multifamilies.
Yeah. Why? What were you doing before that?
Before we had a 24-unit building, we were doing some commercial properties. Okay. We were doing
And what's the disadvantage there?
And we were in some areas that took a little bit more of our time than it would before. But what happens is with the single families and the small multis, usually it's a lot less headache.
Okay.
It's a lot less issues.
Less turnover, maybe?
Less turnover. It's higher rents.
Okay.
So our revenue per door went up. It was easier to build our SOPs around the same type of properties.
Tell us what's an SOP.
So it's standard operating procedures about how we handle the maintenance calls, because our goal is not to be, there's a lot of bad property management companies out there. We are not the cheapest property management company. We tell people all the time, if you're looking for the cheapest, we're not. Our goal is to be the best. We want to provide the best customer service. So if we really know our product and we're niched in where we want to be, we're able to provide better service.
What markets are you serving for property management?
So we really handle from Essex County down to Mercer County.
Okay.
And like I said, we really specialize. We're double down. So now that we know we want to just go after single families and small multis, we redid our whole marketing.
Okay.
To make sure our marketing is clearly targeted towards single families and small multis.
Now, does that include, seasonal rentals? Obviously, in the Monmouth County market, we have a lot of summer, winter, or is that just kind of annual?
We don't do any short terms.
Okay.
We only do 12-month rentals.
Okay.
We don't do any Airbnbs. We don't manage townhouses. I mean, we are so dialed into what we manage. And what I noticed is when I came back and I met with our team about this is kind of our new strategy. And I targeted all the marketing to that. We grew in revenue, and the people in the company loved it because we had a clear picture of where we were going. We knew how many doors we had to get under management to hit the profit levels that we want. And it just gave us a lot more clarity.
Right. That
and
makes
when
sense.
when we dialed it in, we really saw a big growth in our business.
What's the biggest advantage from a landlord to get a property management company to help them with their services with the tenants? And
it's a great question. I mean, if you're somebody out there and you really want to scale, when you enroll a good property management company, all you have to worry now is about finding a new deal and how to finance the new deal. Because as you start scaling your real estate portfolio, as you know, the financing is now an issue of where to go, especially in the last year with everything that's happened, all the changes in banking and banks that we used to deal with no longer being in business, getting bought out, all these mergers and acquisitions of banks. You know, the lending landscape's been changing by the day.
Sure.
So what we did was we just really wanted to focus on, if you're with an owner, all you have to do is hand over the property, and there's nothing else. We'll handle the leasing. We handle all the maintenance calls. We handle all your renewals. If, God forbid, a tenant is late, we handle all the sending out the notices. So it allows you, instead of spending your time worrying about these things, go out and find another property.
Go out and get the next one. And you have someone that could help with that too.
Yeah, exactly. We have someone that can help with that. But don't lose out on dollars because you're focusing on pennies. Like, oh, I don't want to pay your management fee. But if you paid our management fee and you were able to focus on these higher dollar activities of acquiring more doors, how does that change your life in the long run? Like, I'm more than happy to pay for a service if it allows me to free up to go grab bigger dollars.
Now, were people coming to you when you started marketing this idea of this company? Were people coming to you through all these little systems that you send out to generate the inbound leads? What did you use? Were you usually using online predominantly, or were you hitting the streets getting the idea out?
No, it's a great question. So what we did is we did create a program for realtors because a lot of times realtors will deal with an investor. Someone asks them what's property management. So we built an agent program. We promoted it within the agents saying, hey, if you know someone that needs property management, what we do is we pay a $500 referral fee for a signed property management agreement. We pay it to their broker, that. But what we did was we started really trying to dominate Google.
Okay.
There's a couple of pay-per-lead services that also have big online presence and pay for some of the leads. And we have it all automated into our CRM. We've been building up our SEO over the time. Google pay-per-clicks, Bing. So we've just been leveraging. But what we do is we track all of our marketing. So no matter what marketing I do, no matter what company it's in, we leverage tracking phone numbers. We leverage landing pages. So I know, hey, I put $10,000 into this, but I pulled out $300,000.
Right.
And I coach agents a lot on this is because I've dealt with agents who have been very scattered in their marketing. I'm in a magazine, I'm doing this, I do this. They do a little bit of everything, but they don't do anything that dominates. So what I'll do is I sit with an agent and say, hey, these are your marketing strategies. How many calls did you get off of this? Oh, I don't know. How many calls did you get off of this? I don't know. Or they always say, I ask everyone when they call me, where'd you get my information? I've been around enough realtors for long enough to go, there's no possible way you do that. Right? You're driving in your car, you get distracted. You're not asking how they found you.
Yeah. So
what we do is we put all these tracking phone numbers into all the different mailers and everything they do. And then this way is we get the data over 6 months. How many calls did you get off of this? You got no calls off of this. And you got 8 calls off of this. Why don't we take some money out of this, move it into this, and grow your 8 to 12?
Right.
And this is how we're able to show agents a path of profitability, which is a word that's not used that much in real estate, because we have the data. We're not guessing which marketing works.
Right.
Where I think a lot of traditional real estate is they were guessing.
Right, because that's the next step. I mean, implementing the marketing is one thing, getting the system down, your standard operating procedures, right? How you're going to strategize to get referral business, but then it's consistently evaluating and inspecting what you expect and figuring out where you need to make changes. That's a massive part of this business and growing.
It's like if you're trying to get into shape and you're going to the gym, how do you know whether or not you're losing weight? You got to weigh yourself. Right. You can only improve what you're measuring.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we measure our marketing once a month, what's working, what's not working. And I get it. There's some stuff that's brand plays and, you know, put a little money and you might not get a return, but I want to know exactly, I put X in, I'm taking Y out. And it also makes it scalable. If I want to go into a new market and I have the playbook, I could just implement it there and I'm not guessing.
What are you seeing, like, by way of, let's say, the legalities? Because there's so much, especially in the state of New Jersey. Is there anything that you think landlords that are out there right now, maybe listening, you know, trying to get to that next property, is there anything that they should know about from a legal perspective that you see a lot of landlords missing?
I think a lot of landlords are shocked about the new lead-based paint laws that have come into effect, that are really going into effect next month. If your rental is built before 1978, you have to get it inspected. In some towns, it's a visual. Other towns, they do an actual sample test to see if there's exposed lead-based paint, because there were so many.
Is that the next business, by the way? Lead-based paint
inspection? that is not a business I'm interested in. But there's some people out there who do it really good.
That. Yeah,
but that's a good thing. So we try to educate our landlords.
Is that a once a year thing that they have to get done, or
so they have? So if the house is built before 78, they have to do it every time they turn tenancy, and or every 2 years.
So it's a new, like, CO requirement, essentially.
Yeah, a lot of the towns are still figuring out how they're enforcing it.
Okay.
But in July, so I think Governor Murphy passed this about 2 years ago, and I think this July is really going into effect.
It's kind of crazy that that's never been a requirement, right? Because lead-based paint, it's pretty serious that if you have it in your home.
100%. And it was funny because they announced this maybe a few months after I started the property management company. I'm like, well, New Jersey's the only state that does this. And of course, it happens right after we start our property management.
Yeah.
But even as a personal landlord, I mean, I got all my properties inspected. I don't want to get on the radars, and you know, how you do anything is how you do everything. So I want to make sure I did it right. I want to stay above board because I look at this as a business and I pride myself on how I run my investing business.
On the real estate side, when you buy or sell a property, is the home inspector inspecting for lead-based paint on that?
Ironically enough, most times no.
Okay.
But what we're telling our agents is if you're working with an investor and they're buying a property from another investor and they have tenants in there, you should be asking, did you get this done?
Right.
And because you want to make it part of the contract, because you don't want to go in and realize you have to do a huge lead project. So we're telling the agents to get ahead of this.
Right. I'm wondering, so I'm just doing the math here, 2.5 years, your property management business started after COVID, right?
It did.
Okay. Did I would imagine that was a tough time for a lot of landlords. They're probably like, here, you help me, right? Yeah. It's like, what are you doing in those instances if there's an eviction that's needed or something along those lines? What's the standard operating procedure for, someone's late on their payment? How do you guys handle that?
Nicole, that's a great question. I got to think because I'm not really in the day-to-day of that business. I think after 5 days, we send a notice to quit.
Okay. So it's quick. It's right after.
We do it. We send it on behalf of the landlord, whether or not, and then we go to the landlord and ask them if they want to proceed with the eviction. Because some landlords are like, no, I want to see if we can work it out or give them some more time. Then we work with a couple of really good eviction attorneys that we refer our clients to.
That's important because, you hear a lot of times landlords are very sympathetic, right, to the excuses and, whatever the tenant may say to them. And so kind of following that standard protocol of, hey, if you're late, here's the process. And I think that's one of the benefits of property management.
So I'm going to share this with you is I was the worst landlord until I got my property management company.
No problem. You don't need
all my stuff was under rented. I'm like, oh, they've been good tenants. I don't want to really mess with it. But now that I let my team and the property management handle it, they've raised all my rents to where they should be, market value. Yeah. They're getting all the renewals because I was always just nice about it. But now that I have a company handling it and it's more of just like a business,
right?
It's getting all the rents up. It's getting my renewals done. Right. I would be we wouldn't have a renewal done. I was the worst landlord.
It's a process. I have a 4-unit down in Tampa, and I have a property in Cookman on Cookman Avenue in Asbury Park that I rent. And one of my things is like, I just want to keep someone there. I don't want to turn it over. I don't want to turn over and then wait. And so a lot of times I'm like, all right, we'll just keep it where it is. But what do you recommend to use if you're not, let's say if you don't have to relist it, right? Because someone's considering renewing, but you're trying to figure out, well, what is the rental income on this property? What tools would someone use to figure that out?
So one of the things that we have at our property management company, if you go to our website, is we have a free rent estimate for you. So you fill in your address and it gives you really detailed reports of all the comps and everything.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
that's a good question. What's the website?
CMSPM.com.
CMSPM.com. Okay.
And you could get a free rental valuation and it'll give you all the comps and stuff. But just like comping regular real estate, like seeing what's in the MLS, seeing what's on some of the rental sites, just sometimes driving around and seeing what the for rent signs are and seeing what things are going for.
Right.
But I always say is you don't want to lose a tenant over $100, over $50, whatever it might be, because it's going to cost you more to turn
in the long term. Right. Yeah. Between the CO, everything that needs to get done. Now you got your lead-based certifications if you're before 1978, right? So so you, unless it's a substantial increase, you want to try to just keep them happy.
100%.
So talk to us, so you have the real estate office, you have the property management business. I mean, we can't not talk about the NAR settlement piece of your side of the business on the real estate end. How are you conveying? I've heard some of your Instagram posts and the videos that you've put out about how to kind of turn this around, but tell us how you're speaking to agents about it in this market and consumers.
It all comes down to your dialogue. If you don't know why somebody should sign up and commit to working with you and your time and you don't value your time, why is the person across the table going to feel like they can? So it all comes down to the dialogue. You have to be confident. I've been teaching really big listing agents is you should be using the new buyer's agency agreement to help you secure more listings.
This is what I saw you talk about. Yeah, I want to hear about this.
In the buyer agency agreement, it says that please don't show me houses where they're not offering out compensation. And whether that compensation is $1, I mean, all that's negotiable. But if I'm sitting down with a seller, I would say, seller, my job is one thing and one thing only. That is to get as many people through your house to get you top dollar for your house. I don't want to see anybody not come through your house because we're not offering out compensation. The choice is yours. What do you want to do? The worst thing you could do when you're dealing with people is tell them something they have to do. I like to give people the aha moments. I like to let people figure it out themselves, self-discovery. It's kind of like I say with my kids. If I tell them not to touch the hot stove, they're going to want to touch it.
They want to touch it.
Right? If they self-discover it's a hot stove, you never have to tell them again.
Absolutely.
So I like helping people, walking them through how to discover it. But I'm telling my buyers, agents, if you're working with buyers, you have to explain your value. I think buyer's agency agreement is a great thing. A lot of states had it, but way before New Jersey, who's now going to adapt it because of the settlement. But you're making a commitment. Your time is worth something. Don't undersell your value.
Right.
But you have to also now treat working with a buyer like it was working on a listing. You're going to have to commit. What's your value? What's your marketing? What's your track record like? Are you able to demonstrate the value you bring to a buyer? And a great way to demonstrate your value is educating people through stories.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client that had this happen. This is how we hit the pitfall.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at a report at NAR, and they compared 1981 to 2021. So they looked at a 40-year gap in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, more people worked with an agent in 2021 than they did in 1981 with buying and selling real estate.
Wow.
And this stat really shocked me because in those 40 years, we had trillions and trillions of dollars pouring in the real estate industry between technology, the Zillows, realtor.coms.
Right.
So in 1981, to buy a house, you needed a realtor to actually know what the inventory was.
Right.
In 2021,
like
you didn't need
flip through
that.
a book back then or something.
Right. The MLS books, you had to get the keys. I mean, it was
pull out a map to figure out where to go.
So very inefficient. So in 2021, you can go on Zillow. You can see the house that you like, and you can reach out to a realtor, or you can just go, you know what the inventory is. But more people used an agent in 2021 than in 1981 because the value an agent provides. It's the biggest purchase of their life.
Even with the technology, right? Even with all of the resources that a buyer has at their disposal. You brought up Zillow. What, there was, Zillow leads were just a massive thing over the last probably 2 decades, I'd say. What's your opinion on that? How is that working for agents? Is that one of the avenues you suggest to use to generate that inbound business?
I think if you're comfortable converting online leads and you have the dialogue and you have the follow-up, you can make a lot of money working Zillow leads. And for some agents I sit with and I go over their business plan, we evaluate their spend on Zillow, whether we should increase it, whether we should decrease it. But if you don't have the dialogue, or if you think every lead you should convert and it should be a deal, and
you got to have the follow up.
Right. And you're not looking at your budget as a yearly budget, you're on a month to month budget. And if you're really stretching yourself and you're not good at converting the leads, you shouldn't do it.
How much would you say an agent should spend on their marketing annually?
I always like to say, 15% back of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's about.
But it's also spending that 15% in a smart way. Right? What's working? What have you tracked? What's the data? Follow the data. Double down on what's working. If you have a billboard that nobody sees and it's one billboard behind a bridge, and you get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, you've mastered this lead generation system, starting a business from scratch, turning it into something successful. You've done that twice. You're still doing it, and now you have this whole real estate investing portfolio. You have over 30 properties, I believe, some commercial, some residential. Tell us about how you got into real estate investing and how you've continued to grow it year over year. Because I think a lot of people, they love the idea of real estate investing. They go out, they buy a property. Maybe they get one investment. Maybe they don't get a property management and they're tied down, focused on the pennies. But other times there's people that they can't find the next deal. They don't have the capital for the next deal. So I would love to hear how you consistently continued to grow that over this period of time.
That's a great question. The reason I got into real estate investing is I call it one of my sliding glass door moments. I remember being a kid. I was sitting there with my grandfather in Brooklyn, uneducated, drove a subway. He had a 2-family in Bensonhurst. And I just remember him sitting there one day. He goes, man, if I knew how much my house was going to be worth one day, I would have bought the neighbor's house and the other neighbor's house.
By the way, both of our families are from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn,
okay,
so we'll talk about that at some point.
Those prices just went crazy.
Mine said the same thing.
Right. And I just remember being a little kid, and it just always stuck in my head. And, my grandfather, when he passed, was a millionaire because of real estate, not because he drove a subway. So I was like, man, I really got to remember this. And I was always interested in bigger pockets and just learning how to invest. And I knew that's something I wanted to do.
You were going to focus on that.
And I bought my first townhouse in Hillsborough when I got into real estate. And it's funny, I actually bought the townhouse 2 doors down in foreclosure. So I bought the first one for like $270 back in 2007, 8. And then I bought the next one for $160,000 out of foreclosure in maybe 2016. I own both those properties still. I'm actually selling one of them because I'm doing a 1031 exchange. And we are buying a 30-unit strip mall. Okay. From it, we're doing a 1031 exchange from those condos. So what I did was, it's like anything else. It's a momentum business. It's confidence. The scariest real estate investment deal I did was the first one.
The first home. And I remember you telling the story. I was saying on Instagram the other day, everyone should share the story of the first home they bought, the next home they bought, because it's inspirational. Even, you know, you didn't really buy your first home in the best time either. It's 2007, 2008, but you still own it today.
Yeah.
Were you cash flowing on it originally when you ended up moving out of it
No.
and renting? I mean, sometimes
no.
you don't, right? You're just
No.
catching the appreciation on these.
Right. I caught the appreciation. The one I bought for 160, we're selling for over, I had listed it for 410.
Yeah.
And we're under contract and we're closing. So I'm in it for the long game.
Mm-hmm.
I've done I bought a 1-bedroom condo for $50,000 in 2017, renovated it. I bought it sight unseen, which was probably the best thing I could have done, because if I saw it, I probably would have backed out. We renovated it. We rented it out.
Amazing.
I sold it for $135,000 and we 1031 that into a 5-unit building.
Awesome.
So, which produces a lot more cash flow and everything like that. So people are always like, where do I start? You start where you're comfortable. In the beginning, I was really comfortable in condos. But whenever I buy a property, I look at two things. I look at cash flow and I look at forced appreciation. If I do renovations, will this property appreciate? If it checks those two boxes, I buy it. If it doesn't, I don't. That's my strategy.
And are you just doing your own independent research, going from like kind of one site to another on the ground, moving around, just knowing your market? Or are there tools that you use to figure out what's the cash flow, what's the forced appreciation on this property?
Right. A lot of that now just comes from our experience and being able to comp properties as an agent. I evaluate deals on my iPhone. You know, I could figure out what the ARV is and I could back it out, and I know what to offer.
An ARV for our audience
after
here?
Repair value.
Okay.
So
We could do this quick.
We could do it quick. I mean, we've just been doing it for so long. But
right.
in the beginning, I used a lot of resources like Bigger Pockets. If you're friends with use a good realtor who can help you with what the after repair value is. Form a good relationship with a contractor. I mean, my main contractor and I have been working together now since 2006. No, excuse me, 2016. My kids know my kids the other day said, "Oh, there's a crack in the house. Call Julio. He's got to come fix it." So I mean, he's become like family to me.
That's great.
You know, and listen, sometimes I think his pricing, I could probably get somewhere lower.
We trust him.
But in a long-term relationship, there's going to be times where, his pricing might not work or my pricing might not work for him, but it's got to be a win-win.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to stretch everybody to get the best pricing, and you're just going to burn through relationships.
And look, you don't become successful on your own, right? You said this before. It's about people, right? It's about the people you invest in. It's about the marketing, but it's a team effort, right? Without that, you wouldn't get where you are today. So when did you make the move over from residential to commercial? What spawned that interest? And is this like a fund? Is this a group of people together doing stuff to make it happen?
No, it's basically me and my partner,
okay.
Olivier. It's basically just us. We have done some private money things, but we haven't done a fund. It's probably something we'll do in the next few years. I have a good friend who's really pushing us to do it, but that's a whole nother business. And when you run a fund, I take somebody else's money more serious than I take my own.
Right.
So we've had private lenders who have helped us finance fix and flips and stuff that came to me. And I've never asked anybody to invest with us. Anyone who ever has reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to get investing. How do I do it?
I'm interested." Right.
I'm interested. But I take someone else's money a lot more serious than I probably take my own money. So we'll do some of that. But we really just leverage. First couple condos I bought, I was in a position and I got them cheap enough. I was able to buy them in cash.
Okay.
And then I just leveraged a financing delayed financing programs that are available through Fannie and Freddie.
Right.
And I would buy the properties, but I knew I was getting them at such a good price that the day after closing, I would start my refi process.
Pull your money back out.
And I was able to pull my money back out and my closing costs, as long as I was hitting the debt to value ratio, the loan to value ratio. So we were able to then get such good deals that we were buying them, that I was able to buy it, pull my money back out, and wait past a period through their guidelines of whatever it was, and just rinse and repeat once we found how to get the deals.
That's great. And, for our viewers, because this is just a product that, after 12 and a half years with one bank that had one product, we have this product. It's called a debt service coverage ratio loan. It's like an investor cash flow loan. And basically how it works is essentially you buy a home. We don't take any of your income information. We don't take any schedule of real estate that you own. We're just focused on the property you're buying, what the mortgage payment is, and how much it rents for. So that's exactly how we qualify people. There's no W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. There's bank statements for your down payment, but there's no proof of income. We qualify you off of the rental income only, similar to how it works with commercial real estate, right? They just qualify you off of the rent roll. So if you're buying a 30-unit shopping mall, right, it's all based off the rentals on that, right, when you purchase it and you finance it that way. So that's amazing. So now where's this property located, the 30-unit?
It's in Ewing.
Ewing? Okay.
Yeah, it's in Ewing.
Awesome. And is your real estate office doing commercial and residential?
We do. We're mostly residential, but
Okay.
we do have a few agents that are really doing well in the commercial space.
That specialize in that. Okay, good. I assume you use all your own agents for all these deals. You got
a lot of the deals we're doing. I mean, some of the deals we're buying is off market, relationship based.
That's awesome.
Things of that nature. We also do some targeted marketing with the inbound systems that we've built for other businesses to get us leads. And it's really just something I'm passionate about. Yeah,
it's great. So Carl, obviously, you know, if people have real estate needs, you guys can reach out to Carl. If you're looking for a property management service, I think it was, what was that website again?
CMSPM.com.
CMSPM.com. REMAX First Realty, you can find them in 5 different locations across New Jersey. And if you're looking at, you know, if you're real estate investing and you have some questions and you've been watching this today, you can comment below. We'll put all the links to your website on this video as well, so that you can reach out to Carl if you have any questions. And we appreciate you guys listening to us today. Is there anything you want to leave people with, you know, as you're thinking about just your career, your journey, just some parting notes?
Yeah, I think Mark Cuban said it best. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Just take action. Don't worry if it's perfect. People, you're going to make mistakes, but I'd rather have tried something and failed than not try at all.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think that a lot of times we have analysis like paralysis, right? We're just, okay, well, it could be even something small, like you said before, going to the gym, right? It's like, oh, but then I got to get changed and I got to get up and I got to wake up early. And then what if I don't have the time? And you could go through a list of 20 things that stand in the way of you getting it done, and then you never do it. But if you just wake up and go, right, you kind of have to like beat your mind to the punch, beat yourself to like talking yourself out of it. And if you need support or help, there's plenty of resources. There's resources here on the podcast. There's resources you can follow Carl on Instagram. What's your handle on Instagram? Do you know?
That's just my name, Carl SanFilippo.
All right, guys. Well, you have his name right here on the screen. Thanks for joining us today. And if you're looking to be a guest on the $1 Billion Banker podcast, we would love to have you. Reach out to us if you have an inspirational story to share. And please subscribe, like, and comment below. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thanks for coming.